Welcome to the continuing conversation around art, placemaking, and how to create meaningful experiences in the built environment. I'm your host, Martha Weidman, CEO and co-founder of 9 Arts. Today on the show, we have Patrick Foley. He's the co-founder and managing partner of Lake Union Partners, and he focuses on real estate development in new mixed-use projects, things that combine multifamily or hospitality, and concepts that might include innovative retail or public space, as well as adaptive reuse and historic preservation. So he's got some unique experiences and perspective, and I'm excited for you to hear about how he talks about art, culture, and placemaking to shape the places where we live, work, and play. So specifically, you'll hear about some of Lake Union's projects like the Granary campus in Salt Lake City, the State Hotel and Midtown Square in Seattle, and in each of these, we reference some of the amazing artists and installations from each of those projects, which will be linked in the show notes for today. And I also want you to hear the takeaway about this importance of authentic community engagement, things that are done with care and sincerity and a commitment to an enduring place that will benefit residents over time. So enjoy this episode with Patrick Foley, and here's the show. So Pat, thanks so much for being here. And I would love to just kick off with having you tell our listeners a bit more about who you are, what you do, and why it matters.
Of course. Thanks for having me, Martha. I appreciate it. It's good to be with you. And I'll say that I'm a co-founder of Lake Union Partners in Seattle, and we're a commercial real estate development company that spends most of our time thinking about mixed-use projects that includes housing over commercial retail spaces. We try to integrate arts and culture to the best of our ability whenever we can, but we do most of our work in Seattle and Salt Lake City. We've been busy in Portland, and we're also trying to do more business in Denver, Colorado. And we focus probably about 70% of our time on urban infill type work, new construction, new development, and about 30% on what I would call other, and that would be usually adaptive reuse of heritage, historic type preservation projects in Seattle and Portland and Salt Lake City. And so we've done historic projects, preservation projects in all of those areas. And those projects can be anything from we did the State Hotel at downtown Seattle, which we took an early 1900s building there. Yeah, that was an old medical dental building and converted it into a 91-room hotel that we and our partners still own as the State Hotel. And then we recently completed one with our partner Evo in Salt Lake City. It's called the Evo Hotel, and it's in the Granary campus, another late 1800s building that we converted into retail with hotel. So we do about 30% of those kinds of projects and 70% of new construction infill.
Well, those are high impact projects. I haven't been to Evo. I've seen images of it on your Instagram page. It looks amazing. Tell me more about what's happening in Salt Lake City.
Well, on the Evo or the Granary campus that we have there, it's in the Granary district. It's an old, I guess they call it like late 1800s brick warehouse that we acquired with our partner Evo, who is an outdoor gear kind of outdoor activity lifestyle company based here in Seattle. And in fact, we share, we're in the same office building as the Evo headquarters. And so we've been friends with them for a long time. And we're trying to find a way to work together on a project at some point. And so we found this opportunity in Salt Lake. And so this is another adaptive reuse historic preservation where we took an old 1800s warehouse that's on the west edge of downtown Salt Lake. And we converted it to the Granary campus. And what we have there, it's all retail and hotel. So we have Evo has a flagship store in the building. And then adjacent to them, we brought Seattle Bouldering Project in Salt Lake. It's called Salt Lake Bouldering Project, a climbing gym, which is really a great business. And then Level 9 Sports, which if Evo is the Nordstrom, Level 9 is a Nordstrom rack. So it's great equipment, just a little bit of a discount. And so they coexist together. And then we built with Evo the Altogether skate park. About 70% of it is an indoor skate park. And then about 30% is outdoor on the edge of the building. You walk right by it.
That's amazing.
And then an 85-bed hotel on the upper level of the building. And so it's really geared towards Evo type customers that are the people that come to Salt Lake to enjoy the outdoors, for skiing, for mountain biking, all of those things.
Absolutely. Who doesn't love that? That's amazing.
Right. That's right. So that was another really great, rewarding project. And as far on the artist side of that building, we worked with 22 artists to bring their art inside that building, and then additionally, we're bringing back our second project with Shepard Fairey. He and his crew from Los Angeles will be coming out, and so we're going to do another art installation over the Altogether skate park. So it will be, Shepard himself comes from the skating culture.
Yeah, that's a perfect opportunity.
Yeah, punk rock. So it'll be in that theme. I can't say right now what the piece is going to be, but you can be assured that if anything Shepard Fairey does it's going to be amazing. So we expect by the end of the summer that will be done. But we're really excited about that project. That's been another very fun, rewarding opportunity to work on.
Well, I cannot wait to see it. It sounds totally iconic, and what a boon for the city of Salt Lake. So definitely. I remember the first time that we met, I was telling you about my favorite place to stay when I come to Seattle, which is the State Hotel. And I'll never forget telling you all the things that I loved about this place. And then you telling me that, oh yeah, we did that project.
Yep.
So it is an incredible experience. I mean, there's this large scale mural by Shepard Fairey on the exterior. So if you're taking the ferry from Bainbridge Island and you come in, you see the skyline, you can see the State Hotel right there. So it got this iconic image. And then when you're inside, the interiors of the space have a great, homey type feeling, but also very unique. There's artist designed wall coverings, really unique styling, and overall, I would say a top notch art and cultural experience in that hotel. So I love seeing the historic preservation side of that as well, and historic preservation alongside culture and great architecture just all go hand in glove.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. That was definitely a project that was, I'd put that in the top 2 most challenging projects we've ever taken on. It was certainly by no means the largest project, but it was certainly the most complicated, from everything from getting the design approved and getting the actual project built. Was really challenging. And then going through COVID, a year after we opened the hotel, the first year things were looking pretty good, and right when we were gaining some momentum, the pandemic hit. So we've had 2 years of difficulty, but stayed open, kept the restaurant and bar open, Ben Paris, and things are starting to look pretty good finally again. So it'll still be a while, but we have reasons to be optimistic.
Yep. What do you think were some of the major challenges that you overcame, or things that you learned through that experience that you might want to share with other people who are in adaptive reuse or in hotel development?
Sure. Well, when we took that project on, we looked at it as such a challenging site because the floor plates are they're under 6,000 square feet. So it's a pretty small building, really. It's 8 stories now. We added a floor. But the big challenge was there was no room to do anything, to lay down we're not a contractor, but the contractor that we hire, there was no room for them to put even a job office, or to have lay out all of the steel and materials that need to go into that building, or to do the demolition, because it was such a dense urban location right by the Pike Place Market. There's people, you don't really get to shut the sidewalk down there. That's there's millions of people that walk by there every year going to the market. And so we had to keep that open. And so it was very, very challenging. The city of Seattle wouldn't let our contractor do certain things that required street work. And so they'd have to work at night and schedule these very large lifts of steel up and into the building. And we also had an uncooperative neighbor who didn't want to grant us temporary access to their roof of their building. So we had to figure out, how do we do all of this from the inside? So I would say the engineering and the construction of the building was just immensely challenging. And We worked with the city of Seattle. They really wanted to see something happen there because the building had been vacant for decades, since the early 70s. And it was a rough corner. And so they really wanted to see something happen. So they were helpful in the sense that they gave us some approvals to make it a little bit easier for us to do the work all from the inside. And we had a lot of structural demolition that had to happen. And then any materials that were removed had to be replaced with non-combustibles. And so there's a lot of new steel and concrete. And we essentially rebuilt the interior of the building while preserving everything all at the same time. So it was really tough, and took longer and cost more money. But overall, I think we're really happy with the result. I'd say it's probably the most rewarding project. That, along with Midtown Square, probably the two most rewarding projects. And when I say rewarding, I don't mean economically. I mean just how we felt about it, the people that we got to know, the people that worked with us on the artist side of both projects was really great. The operator who's working with us on the hotel, all of it. It was just a great experience, really fun.
Well, you and I have some stories to share about Midtown Square and the great work that's happening there from the art and culture side. And Vivian Phillips has been on the show, as has Juan Alonso Rodriguez. So we'll tie their stories in. But before we jump into that, I do want to ask a little bit more about adaptive reuse, because you were talking about these two pretty significant projects and some challenges you faced along the way that are so unique to what was happening in that particular building. And a couple that alongside with what I saw in the course that you're teaching in commercial real estate, which is how to spot trends in commercial real estate development. And it almost sounds like the trend in adaptive reuse is, I guess, expect the unexpected, or might be longer. It always will be longer and harder than you originally imagined. So I'm curious to know more if you feel like is that accurate, that it's always a little bit longer and a little bit harder than you think at the outset, but usually very much worth it?
I think that's a fair way to put it. What we've learned in these is that make sure that you have a really significant and robust contingency to deal with the unknowns, because even when though you think you've thought through everything from the design and engineering and construction standpoint, you can never think of everything that could come up in a project like that. If you can't uncover it all and look at it, which you often can't before you get started, you have to make sure that you've got adequate contingencies to cover gaps in design or scopes that were missed because you just can't see what's there, or there are conditions you run into conditions in old buildings like that of what I call like a beam to nowhere. Like there's a beam, but it doesn't attach to anything. I'm like, oh my God, how is this building holding up? So, the State Hotel was crazy because it had made it through the Nisqually earthquake in the early 2000s, and the west wall had actually separated and was sort of leaning out above the Hard Rock Cafe below from that other building. And the previous owner had kind of strapped some cables and stapled it back to the floor just to hold it together. Well, that temporary affix was held on for 18 years, 17 years of just sitting there. So it's pretty crazy. But I think, having a robust contingency to deal with those unknowns is really important. And we're usually pretty diligent at that, and it keeps you out of trouble, especially on your financing side of things. We don't ever want to go over budget. So we want to make sure we've got adequate contingency, also understanding that, the economics overall have to work.
We've talked about art and design in some of these historic projects that you've worked on, which were key kind of critical components. But even before that, community engagement is such an important part of the process. And I think that's informed what you've done at Midtown Square significantly. So tell us more about how you approach community engagement.
Sure. I think that that's a popular term to use, community engagement. And I think a lot of people that do what I do, they think they do it because it's just they're checking a box. I don't think a lot of people who do what I do it with the intention of actually trying to get a better project out of it, to get better design, or to hear the concerns of community. And that's the intentional part that I think a lot of people miss. And so you actually have to care. If you're only looking at real estate as a commodity and so like transactional, it's going to, I think that oftentimes is really apparent that if a developer's coming in and they're doing it just as a transaction, people, neighborhoods, communities, they can sense that and therefore get frustrated. So I think it's really important to approach community outreach and hear feedback from neighborhoods with sincerity. It's very important because I think that when you're doing what we do, the kind of work that we do, your product is the building, right?
Yeah.
That's your business, the product you're building. And so you're permanently altering people's neighborhoods. You're making a change to it at an intersection that sometimes hurts people, if they've seen if they've been used to a place that was there and it's going away. That's why I think it's so important to hear what people are concerned about. And then oftentimes you'll hear really, really good ideas about changes you might make to your design or businesses that you might bring to that future development, and then giving other people an opportunity to be a part of it is not, and when I say a part of it, I don't mean just giving me feedback on design or what they think is cool. It's more of people that are from those communities. Maybe they can open up a shop in that building. Maybe you can sell them their space as a condo where then they actually then have a stake. And I think those are the differences that that you can make for communities, giving people a stake in the ownership if you can. I realize that's not always possible, but I think to the extent that you can do it, you should try. And but our approach is really, it's what word? I guess I'd say it's different for every project. Every community is different. There are some places where just aren't people there that really even have an interest in what's going on. But we always try to find out who are the interested, the stakeholders, and then we'll go meet with them. Lots of one-on-one meetings, lots of group community meetings, and we hear lots of feedback. And we do our best to take into account what the interests are. We don't always get it right, but you certainly try. And I think most people appreciate that you're at least attempting to hear what they have to say and implement some of their ideas if you can.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, I think let's dig into that in Midtown Square, a project that you've been working on for a number of years. Lake Union Partners overall, I think, is doing a fantastic job of integrating art and culture and community into your projects and really engaging in this process that will be a long-term success through partnerships or programming. And when we came in to help with Midtown Square, it was the time when you were, well into the process of creating this new multifamily development in the Central District, which is a historically red line district. And at the time, it was right at the height of the BLM movement. The CHOP was a highly kind of contentious area. And I think there was a lot of question about how to move forward. You had, of course, engaged in a huge amount of community outreach work and cultural work to make sure the neighbors came in and expressed what their concerns were and how to listen and design in a way that was respectful and genuine. And then ultimately, created this outcome like you were talking about where there are multiple ownership opportunities within the building that I think is actually a great example of reparative equity because most of those owners are coming from Black businesses. So maybe you can tell us a bit like your version of this story and how it's all come around because it's quite an undertaking and an incredibly thoughtful and intentional impact that you're trying to make.
Sure. Well, we'll start maybe a little bit at the beginning. Is we got involved. We've been working at that intersection, and Midtown Square was our fourth project at that intersection. We started early on with a project called the Central, which is also at the intersection. It's on the southwest corner. The Central is a mixed-use building, and then the next project was Stencil, a smaller building on 24th and Union. And we finished those two roughly at the same time, separate opportunities. It wasn't one project, but those two were essentially done at the same time. And then we completed East Union. across the street from the Central, which most people know that building because of the PCC Community Markets grocery store at the base of the building. And then we weren't intending to take on Midtown, but the one thing I did hear you say is that it was at the height of the BLM and some of the stuff going on with CHOP, that we actually were working on Midtown Square 3 years before that happened.
Oh, yeah.
Now,
exactly.
We were in construction, but yeah, we had started our community outreach long before. And the plan that we have, that you can go out there and see now, that was started 3 years before what happened with George Floyd and the BLM movement. And so we were working with the community to bring to that project the redevelopment plan that is now there, which includes a public square, about an 18,000 square foot public square. That was something that we heard from people, and we were also personally interested in providing a large public gathering space that was open, that was privately owned but open to the public 24/7. No gates, not keeping people. That was really, we wanted it. That our invitation was, and the reason we call it a public square is we want people to know that that is their space to use the way that they feel good about. They can go in. There's retail shops in there. They can just go in there with their own coffee if they want, or tea, and sit there and read a book. And so we wanted to also make it a place that was a gathering space for farmers markets, for outdoor music, all those sorts of things. And so the community outreach for that went on for a solid, 2 years, I would say. 2 years of community outreach, lots of listening, lots of contentious meetings. It was not easy. There were some people that didn't want that project to happen no matter what. And so it was really challenging to get everyone on board. But I would say in the end, the significant majority of people from the community were excited about what the plan was, and got on board, and we're really happy with the end result.
You and Lake Union Partners and Rico Kirandango and Vivian Phillips had been working together for years, creating this concept that was responsive to the neighborhood's needs. And it had the project in the corner had been under scrutiny already. And then I think what happened, so NIDAC came in to help Vivian Phillips and Lake Union Partners and Rico Kirandango come up with a plan for what could be a designated art space in the building. And during that process, in fact, right after we came on board, the murder of George Floyd happened. There were protests. And so after you all had been working on it for years, and after we had been working on it for just a couple of months, this whole extra layer of scrutiny came up to the project itself. And what was so powerful about that moment is that we really had already done a lot of the work. And so it was more about just affirming the value system that already existed in the plan.
That's right.
And I think that really came forward in all of the planning stages of what Vivian's vision was of that art space and what it could be with Art Noir, and bringing the Black arts and culture of the neighborhood forward. And then, of course, Lake Union Partners being responsive and supportive to that concept in a way that made an impact, not just for Art Noir, not just for the Black art and culture, leaders of the neighborhood, but for an even bigger impact among all of the other business owners who are going to be a part of Midtown Square for, in perpetuity.
Yeah, absolutely. It was really interesting to think about how the art concept came to be. And when we were doing early outreach meetings, before Vivian was involved, we were working closely with Rico Kirandango. He is an architect. And I'll tell you, he's one of the most valuable relationships I've had. He and Vivian together, but I met Rico before I knew Vivian. I should say, not me. And he was just so immensely helpful at, bridging the gap and organizing and running those community meetings and keeping it focused on design and placemaking and organizing the priorities that the neighborhood told us that they wanted us to address. And so Rico is amazing. And the way it started, the art program, we didn't really know exactly. We knew that art needed to be a part of the design, but the way the way it all came to be is we'd just come off the State Hotel that you and I spoke about earlier, and we had a very robust art program there, not just with Shepard Fairey, but Kate Blairstone and Kyler
Mhm.
Martz and Ryan Mullenkamp and Takia Ward, who also is part of this Midtown project.
Yeah.
So many great artists that were part of that project. That really, for us, was kind of the beginning of like wanting to do more of that, and the feeling the sense and the importance of it, and just seeing the reaction of people coming to the State Hotel, not just for Shepard Fairey, but for all of it. Just how people reacted so positively about the art, and we thought, we really need to bring this same attitude, but improve upon it at Midtown Square. And so we brought some images that we had from the State Hotel, and very specifically the Shepard Fairey, the fire sale mural that's on the west wall facing the market. That was posted as an image in a Midtown Square meeting, and we had so many people walk up and point right at that and said, I want to see something like that on this building,
Oh,
but
that's cool.
but that represents this community. And
Yeah.
then additionally, Takia Ward, who's an artist, not just at the State Hotel, but on Midtown Square, her mother, Shalee, had come up to me at a design review meeting, and she was very adamant and she said, in this community, we honor our neighborhood by we put stone carved faces on the wall. No. And I said to her, I said, well, I love that idea. I don't know that the structure can handle big, heavy stone, but the idea of faces of people from the community on the wall really came to be, and that, came out in Adam Jabari Jefferson's art of the photographs of people from the neighborhood, but it was really her pushing for that led us to that, and paired with the Shepard Fairey idea. And then we started thinking about, and talking with Rico, I was like, well, why isn't the whole exterior of the building, that is the canvas, that's where the art, those were the locations for the art. And so that's how it came to be. And then that led to Vivian Phillips, who really organized all of this and went out and found the arts advisory panel for this project. And for us, it was it was a little bit scary, because we're sort of control freaks in the kind of work that we do. And we turned over 100% control really to Vivian and Rico, and they selected the panel. We stayed off the panel, and we just made a choice that Vivian is going to tell us what the art is going to be. We're not going to approve it or not. She's going to tell us what it is. So we just agreed that we we're going to do that. And I can't tell you enough how happy we were with the final result and the artists that they selected. It was an open call process. Various artists proposed, and Vivian and Rico and the other, I believe there were 7 advisory members on the panel, selected these artists. And Vivian is really the person that came up with the theme of reverence and discovery, which that's really how we talk about Midtown Square now. It's the theme of reverence and discovery. And you can go all around that building and look at the various art installations and see that. And it is a great place for discovery. And it's just wonderful. And we couldn't be happier.
Well, it's a wonderful story, and I love your telling of the evolution of the building becoming the canvas, and working with the architect and Rico to really understand that their space there could be such a high impact location for the community. And hearing Takia's mom say, "This is what we want to see,"
It's important.
and the response being just incredible, and the outcome being incredible. So if you haven't already, we'll link a photo to this in the show notes for the podcast series today. But the side of the building has beautiful photographs, as were mentioned earlier, but also Barry Johnson did this pattern that became the side of the building panels. And so it's this bright, colorful, beautiful expression that
You know what's
ties.
cool about that, Martha?
Yeah, please.
Those colors, if you look at the color, that pattern, all those colors together make up the color black, which is
wow.
it's just really beautiful. I love looking at his work. He's so talented. And I just love to look at that, knowing that that's what that means, that all of those colors come together to make that. And, Barry, additionally, he also designed the bronze statue of James Washington Jr., the artist who created the Fountain of Triumph that was originally on the property. We had it taken away. The James Washington Foundation The Pratt Arts Institute restored it, and then Barry designed this beautiful bronze of James Washington that's on the corner of 24th and Union. It's really touching, It's if you go out there and look at it, if you know James Washington's story, you get choked up about it. And Laverne Hall, who runs his foundation, is she gets really emotional about it. Every time I've been around her, she sees that bronze of him, and she knew him personally, him and his wife for years. She gets very emotional about it, and so it makes me feel that way too. So anyway, it's a great story, and but Barry's work was just beautiful.
And for those of you who are listening or following along, you've also heard from Rico Kirindago on the show. You've heard from Vivian Phillips. You've also heard from Juan Alonso. And the sculpture by Barry Johnson of Dr. James Washington it sits right next to Juan Alonso Rodriguez's
the hollyhocks.
Sculpture of hollyhocks that's on the wall there too. So it's this incredible art-filled space that has history, culture, and such a sense of pride. I mean, I feel like when I go there, I understand where I am. I understand why it's different and what this neighborhood values. And so it's a very special place to be, especially that square that you're talking about, that gathering space in the center. It provides this incredible opportunity for entertainment, social space, gathering time. I mean, what an incredible project to see come to life. And I'm sure that, the anticipation of just seeing it fully occupied and the building open must be fresh on your mind.
And then the cool part is, as we got going into the project, Takia approached us with the concept of opening up a custom sneaker shop. She's an artist that she designed a pair of sneakers for me, where she paints sneakers, and it's really, really cool stuff. And she wanted to open up a sneaker shop where she does custom sneakers, but also repurposes them. And it's almost like what she calls a dry cleaner for sneakers, and then customizing them. And then also, I think she wants to sell streetwear. Well, her shop is going to be right across the square, looking right at her art installation. So it's almost kind of a double story, where she'll be there as a business owner, and then also has the story of her installation directly across from her. It's really cool. It's really fun.
Yeah, it's like the history, and then the current generation and
That's
their
right.
fresh ideas and
Totally.
fresh take on things. It's so cool.
Yeah.
Well, what trends are you seeing, just going back to kind of a broader view of commercial real estate development, and of course your work in teaching the next generation about how to approach things? What advice do you have? What industry trends do you see? What do you look for or might want to teach people about?
Trends, that's an interesting word, because I guess I can only share my point of view on this. It doesn't mean I'm right, but at my point of view, if something becomes trendy, me and my partners tend to okay, we need to go in a different direction. And one of the things I worry about, a project like Midtown Square, I don't think you would try to just build that again. It's unique to that location, the people that were involved. And what I worry about trend-wise is when things do become trendy in commercial real estate, there's a lot of imitators, and I worry about people thinking that they're doing something that is like Midtown Square with the art program and the community. And if it's not done with a sense of real purpose or sincerity, that's to me, it's just trendy that they're doing it. You've heard Vivian has talked about this, and she's been asked about, was this art? Are you art washing the building? I worry that will be a trend. I think people think they're not being trendy,
right?
But if all of a sudden I'm starting to see some buildings pop up like, oh, I'm doing a mural too. You know what I mean? But if it's not done again with purpose and sincerity, and if there isn't a story behind it, it doesn't resonate. And I worry that it becomes disingenuous. Yeah. And so, hopefully, I guess you can't teach sincerity to people. You can't make them want to feel good about doing something right for a given community or bringing participants in. that like I said, there's no such thing as there isn't a care meter out there that you can take a test. It's just so I just hope that people see that it's important. Developers that do what we do see that it is important and kind of dig down and kind of do a little bit of soul searching about. It's beyond just the product that they're building. They're providing a service, right? It's housing, it's retail, or whatever it happens to be. But making their product better, and hopefully that what they'll do is they'll engage our professionals like you all, at 9DOT and others to help them. Because some people aren't really built, or their brain isn't really wired to think about this sort of thing. And so hopefully they're smart enough to know that bring in other outsiders to help them create a better product. But as far as the trends, what am I seeing? I do see you're gonna start to see more art going up on buildings. I hope it's good, because we need more art in the city. But as far as in real estate in general, I see affordability is still the biggest issue that's out there. At the end of the day, that's what people care about. Being at a great place that has services that they want, or a place that they want to hang out, or that they identify with. But I think affordability, being able to, if you're a developer, being able to create projects that have a mixed income. I think if you're doing all high income type of projects, that pisses people off, which I understand it. Yeah. Because I think people who just are not high earners feel left out and they get pushed, so you've heard the term, you drive till you qualify. And, for whether it's rent or for a mortgage. So I think that if you can create projects that are mixed income, Midtown Square is mixed income. And, we sold 20% of that property to, Community Roots Housing and Africa Town Community Land Trust. When we acquired the full block, and the plan was to sell them 20% so they could create a community-based project that had 100% affordable housing. So in our buildings in Midtown Square, we're 30% affordable, 70% market rate. So across the block, blended, you're at 50% affordable. Wow. So that means people who are not, it's not assisted type of a project, or what's the word I'm looking for? It's not subsidized. What it really is, it's just we adjust the rents to a certain level for people that make between 50% and 80% of area median income. So it's workforce housing. It's people that might have to live in Kent or Federal Way. Otherwise, now they could live in the city and walk to their job, or at least have a short commute to downtown or wherever it happens to be. And I think it's important that a dishwasher can live at Midtown Square next to someone who works at Amazon and makes $150,000 to $200,000 a year. And absolutely, they have the same unit, same finishes and everything, but we purposely lower the rent for that dishwasher. Now we do get a benefit for that. We get a tax adjustment on the property tax for that. In the end, that usually works out to be about a break even for us, but I think it makes for a better place. It might allow an artist who isn't a high income earner that's early in their career to live in a place like Midtown Square next to a lawyer.
That's amazing.
It just makes for a better community. It's when you talk about diversity, not just diversity in culture and race, but in professions. I think that's really important.
And socioeconomic status.
Socioeconomics, right. Yep.
Yeah. I think the description that you gave of the building as a service, that's really a completely fresh way to think about it, right? So your building itself, that product is not just this product, but it's a service for the people who live there, it's a service for the people who are in that neighborhood. So thinking of your building or your project as something that serves the people, because ultimately that's what buildings are for, right? They're for people. They're for people to enjoy. They're for neighborhoods, and they're the places where lives are. That's live, work, play. That's where people spend their time. So I appreciate the way that you're approaching it and thinking about it in a somewhat unique way.
Yeah, I think buildings. If you want to look at it in real simple business terms, the building is our business. That is our business, is creating the place. And I kind of jokingly use like the iPhone as an example. Think about all of the people, the creative people that worked to make the use of this thing a great experience for their customers. And so we kind of look at like a building in the same way. How do we make this experience great for our customers, who are the people that own or lease retail space? It's also for the people who live in that building. It's for the community who lives nearby that uses the space, whether it's the public square or whatever commercial shops we bring in. So we just that's why placemaking to me is probably one of the most important things that we do, and that we really think long and hard about how we respond to what people want and need, but how do you bring great places? You have to work extra hard to make your product better by going out and making a deal with someone like Vivian Phillips to sell her space so that she can have this permanent location that she controls the destiny. Her and her board will control the destiny of that location. They aren't subject to a lease in 10 years. Now, not everybody wants to buy their space or can. So, but at least having the opportunity to buy it is really important. And I think that neighborhoods, people that live in the neighborhoods that surround a place like Midtown Square, they know about this sort of thing.
Yep.
And there's something about that makes them feel better. It feels more anchored. It feels less temporary. Feels more, people are more rooted there. It's not as transient.
Yeah, representation matters. I mean, the representation in the artwork, the representation of the faces on the walls, the representation of the businesses that are in the building, the representation of some of the owners is really, really unique. And
I think it is.
I give you kudos for that, because it's hard work, and you made it look easy, but I know that there was so much hard work and so many years put in to make that project a success. So kudos to you. I hope that other people can follow in your footsteps, and that the care meter overall just starts to go up from here.
That'll be your mission, Martha, to invent the care meter.
All right, we'll see if we can work on those metrics for care success. I like that.
Yeah.
That's a challenge accepted. Well, as we close, I'd love to give everyone a chance to tell us about a piece of artwork or a personal art experience, like a concert or a play or a piece of architecture or a museum visit, perhaps. Tell us about something that made an impression on you or was especially memorable.
Boy, that's really good. An art, I would say at Midtown Square, I think there are two pieces there. I'll refer to a couple others as well, but at Midtown Square, I think the faces on the wall that Adam Jabari Jefferson did, that I think this is a serendipitous piece, that one of the images is a guy up there. He's the grandfather. This is total coincidence. He's the grandfather of Christy Brown, who runs Communion, the restaurant across the street.
Oh, wow.
And it wasn't planned. It's almost like her grandfather, who's passed away, is looking down on her, and her restaurant is proving out to be one of the most successful in the city right now. I don't know, maybe even the country.
Goosebumps.
Yeah. So it just things like that happen when you have great people around you, And then I also think the part that I was most moved by is the James Washington Fountain of Triumph. And then when we unveiled the bronze at the Foundations event at the Square a month or so ago, that was really, really meaningful to me. And it's just one of those things that I'll never forget. And so those were really impactful. And then I would say, I think Kate Blairstone, the artist at the State Hotel who did the wallpaper, that's really well known. People, there's a lot of photos of that. And I think just how her story, I think it's more the human story of her. And we had some people that we were working with in Portland on that project that introduced us to Kate. And it was really just kind of one of those things where we were trying to figure out what kind of design we wanted in those elevator foyers on each floor. And Tyler Siegel, who's with, and Nicole Sakai, they run Factory North. They did like a lot of our logo and branding, and they're really some of our best friends in the business. They were involved in Midtown Square as well on that brand identity. And Tyler said, "Hey, you know what? My neighbor is this woman, Kate, who's really talented, and she's never. I think I'd love to give her an opportunity. I think you'd really like her work. She's designed some wallpaper, but it's not really well known." And so we said, "Yeah, let's talk to her." And so she came up and she said, "Well, what do you want this to be?" And I said, "Well, we want it to represent Seattle, but not in a way that's cheesy, like totem poles and pictures of the Space Needle, kind of that corny stuff that you see, touristy type things." And
Yeah,
so,
none of the postcard stuff. Yeah.
Right. And so we said, "Well, why don't you do this? Why don't you walk around the Pike Place Market and see if you can get some images in your head and come back to us with a proposal?" So she went over to the market for a day or two and just walked around by herself and picked up these great images of just little things that she saw at the market. And so what you now see on that wallpaper are these custom images that just came out of her brain and her creativity. And it's fascinating to sit there and look at it. To see a lot of the seafood, the little trinket shops, and just stuff that she saw. And it was really really cool. And then I just loved seeing kind of what's happened to her career. She's a wonderful person and just so talented. And then that led to her doing the portraits in the rooms at the State Hotel of important people from Seattle that aren't probably national celebrities, but Octavia Butler, who was a science fiction writer. There's a great image of her. And we did, Artist the Spoon Man from Soundgarden's song Spoon Man. He played spoons at the market, but she did a great image of him. And those are all in the room. So I think those are the kind of experiences that were fun for me.
That's cool. Well, clearly you've got such a personal connection, not only with these projects, but with the artists and the communities that are a part of them. So thank you so much for sharing your stories today. It was amazing to have you on the show. And for all of our listeners, check out Patrick Foley, check out Lake Union Partners to learn more about the amazing work that they're doing. And where can they find you, Pat? Where should they look?
I live in Seattle, kind of over by the university. I'm not going to give you my address. No. I think lakeunionpartners.com. And
perfect.
Yeah, absolutely. And,
great.
Nice to talk with you, Martha. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for being on the show. And we'll include some links to those images that we saw today, where you can learn more about the State Hotel and Midtown Square and the projects that Lake Union Partners is working on in Salt Lake City as well. So definitely check them out, give them a follow, and thank you again for being here with us today. Hey, thanks for tuning in to ... today. And for more information about our guest and what we chatted about, check out our show notes at 9.arts.com/podcast. Keep in mind that's 9.arts spelled out.com/podcast. And to keep up with our latest episodes, be sure to subscribe to 9.arts on YouTube or subscribe to ... wherever you get your podcasts. If you're looking to transform your next project with art, please email us, letstalk@9.arts.com. And here's to wishing you continued creativity. Until next time.